Welcome, I'm Norma Cowie and this is my YouTube channel. This is my Wednesday morning, what I call Norma Talks, and where we touch on a whole variety of different subjects. Now today is starting off a little bit different because on Sunday I do a live stream with a much shorter talk, and I picked different topics. And this last Sunday I did one on time, mainly because I had done some mini readings the day before, and one of the things that came out it was about time, with people wanting to know when is this or when is that going to happen, and a lot of it was waiting. So now I talked about patience versus impatience, and the two thoughts that kind of came up for me in the morning is, because I tend to just stream from my mind, all things are in the right time, and I have found that to be very true. Often when I've got frustrated, when things show up, it's always at the exact perfect time. The other thing I said was, all things come to those that wait. Based on that comment, someone put a comment on the YouTube channel underneath, which was, what about procrastination? And I thought, perfect talk for Wednesday. Procrastination. We all procrastinate at some point or other. And what I found over the years, I had to look at procrastination because many of my clients that come in have it. So what did I find happened? Now, based on the tarot symbols, which some of them I have on the table in front of me, just to keep reminding me, I found there were two ways that we mostly procrastinate. One is, and I'm just going to read off what I wrote here: fear they are unable to do what they want to do. So in other words, they're looking down the road, projecting ahead to get their goal, to get to where they want to go, and they see an obstacle. And in their minds, they think, I don't know how I'm going to handle that. I think that's a bit tough. I don't think I can do that. And so they literally don't do anything. What they don't realize is that when you go on a path and you go step by step by step, there is an element of learning or assimilating. And because in the assimilating, when you get to that obstacle, two things may have happened. One, you now have the knowledge to handle that obstacle. Two, that obstacle may not be there. Often the road goes a little differently than what you imagine, and consequently you're not actually at that place where the obstacle. So the obstacle never ever really comes up. But at the same point, when you're sitting looking, that's what you see there. I'll come back in a little later and explain why I came to that conclusion. Now, the second reason why people procrastinate is their inner dialogue. I take a big breath, because inner dialogue, how do you identify inner dialogue? There's a lot of thoughts go on. But very often you'll be thinking, I can't do that. That's too big or too much, or any other thought that you have. Now, what often I found that people have a large inner dialogue about not being able to do things, usually were implanted when they were children. Whether, someone put you down a lot, or someone said, don't be so stupid, you can't do that, what do you think you're doing? All sorts of things like that. And if you allow that to impinge you and stop you and block you, if you took it on as this is the truth because this is a person that you look up to or trust, what you will find that what they've done is just put their fear in you, basically. They haven't built you up to that you can do anything that you want to do. And what I found, if people set their mind to it, sometimes it takes years, but they will achieve what they want to achieve if they don't give up. And so it's really important to know, what is your inner dialogue about achieving? What are your really things? And some of you, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, I know way back, I think last year, I did a video on words, of how to change words. And I have found that process incredibly helpful. So you may want to check back out and look at that video about how to transform the neurology around a word. It was something that helped me a lot. And I still use it to this day. If I find I have a reaction to a word, I always do what I call this word chain in order to find what the word is Now, I want to talk a little bit about how the tarot influenced me on this. Years ago, when I was first reading, I'm going to hold this symbol up here. This is the King of Wands. People were seeing me, males and females. I was working in a store, so I had a lot of business coming in. And I'm just trying to make sure this doesn't glare. There we go. And this symbol kept coming up. Now, I wear glasses, right? Because I was always short-sighted. I was just thinking I've worn them since I was 30 years old. And that's because I do not naturally have long vision in relation to my world. I kind of, things happen, I start working, and I do what I've got to do. But some people have lots of vision, and I was seeing this symbol coming up for especially in men in powerful jobs, good jobs, wanting to know just what was going on, but we're unhappy with what they were doing. Now, if you look at this symbol, this is a wand, which is your mind. Now, he's looking, according to me, other people say different things, but according to me, this is his mind. It's very set. It's from wands on the earth, so it's grounded. And he's looking out past the wand. I'm just going to put this down for a moment. Now, I could not figure out why these people were not achieving easily. And so I meditated on the card, and the king, it's the King of Wands, the king told me why. And it's exactly what I said earlier. Well, they see these obstacles, and they're not sure that they can really do them, so they just stay where they are. They don't proceed. They don't go further. And that was the first thing I began to become aware of, the procrastinational patterning. Now, there are other attitude cards, and I should say the attitude cards come from the court cards. According to me, the court cards represent your habits. In other words, your attitudes to life, how you think and feel and respond the most often. Another one that we have here is the Knight of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles is sitting there waiting. Now, if you look at the fields behind him, they're plowed, but they're not seeded. So he's waiting for the right time. A lot of this has to do with timing. But if you have the King of Wands with this symbol and a couple of other symbols, which I'm going to put this down for a moment. This is just from the Laura Arcana, the Seven of Pentacles. And the Seven of Pentacles, you may wonder, well, you know, he's done a lot of work. He's worked, but now he's tired. He is very tired. He's resting on his pole. Boy, do I know this, this vibration. Like, when is this ever going to end? And so you could quit. A lot of people quit at that stage, at that final stage. But all he has to do is take this one and put it up to the top, and then he has succeeded. So very often these many symbols are the same that come up. Now, if we have, there's three attitude symbols that I see. Number three is always a creative number, but if we have two of the three, I know I have a procrastinator that I'm reading for. This is the third attitude, the Queen of Cups. Oh, she looks so delightful, but look at her cup. If you know what a cup looks like, it's not fancy, and it doesn't have a lid on it. She's not seeing anything else but what is in there. And this falls into the imagination pattern. And the imagination, in other words, we get caught up in our head, all the things that are going on. Oh, they're so beautiful, it's so easy, but we're not doing any action. The one thing I learned very importantly, and I decided I was going to show you this symbol today, which is the Magician. Magician is the number one of the higher arcana cards. Now, higher arcana is the higher secrets, the higher learning, and actually to me is the spiritual journey that we go on, and the journey that we discover about life. And he's got all his keys, and that's what a cup looks like. And if you remember, I'll just see if I can pick it up again and show it over here. This is what the Queen of Cups cup looks like. Doesn't look like that much, very close to what it is. So he has everything. He has the wands, his mind. He has the cup, which is the emotional part of him, which is the energy. He has the swords, which means he can combat the issues and the problems that come up in his life. And then he's got a pentacle, which is the representation of the physical manifestation. So he's got everything. The way he's pointing his hands, as above, so below. In other words, he's aspiring. That's the red roses above, and there's red roses below him. He's with white lilies. He's aspiring to his desires. When I started first teaching these, and people would get this card, they get very, very, again, I'll put this down, they get very excited. Oh, wow, I'm going to be successful. Except they weren't, because one thing is missing from this symbol. He's got the spiritual connection, he's got everything ready to go, but there's no action. Without action, nothing occurs. I know, I sit down and watch my TV shows and my sports, and when I could be editing a book or I could be doing something else, and that's a sense of procrastination as well. But it's kind of like that's what gives me my enjoyment, which is necessary. But when I want to get something done, I get up and I do it. And I work at it. Because without action, nothing happens. And why? Because we get like this if we don't do the action. This is the Emperor. Now the Emperor there's some pluses on the Emperor, I have to say. But he is the head, he is stubborn, and sometimes determined. Determined is the plus side. The stubborn is not so great. And again, depicting on other symbols that are around in a reading, it would tell you. But he's not doing any action. He's the god of war. And as we know, Mars, the god of war, apparently was really a coward. He didn't like war at all, which is a good thing. But that's a topic for another day. So he's kind of stuck. Also, when you think a person is going to be moving really, really well, is our Chariot. Now, this is a number 7 of the first 7. This is, of course, it's number 7 of the first 7. Sorry, I got kind of carried away there. To me, I break the higher arcana down into 3 sets of 7, leaving the full by itself. But the 7th is because of the square on his chest, which is like a first stage, what I call a first stage of initiation, first stage of knowledge. You come to this part where you've learned how you yourself work. That's another talk at another time. Now, he's got his town, he's got his life, he's got everything all behind him. So where does he going to go from here? But these oxen here are not moving. They're sitting on the ground. You see, we can decide we want to make changes in our lives. We can do all the work. But there comes a point where all of a sudden we have to have faith and trust in ourselves and our lives and what we know to move it out to see if it works or not. Sometimes we need to do some fine tuning. And actually, if you were studying the steps with me, the second lot of 7 from 8 to 14, talk about that, because you got to learn. So again, we've got any symbol that kind of is stationary can create problems. I decided I would show also the 8 of Swords, because here they are bound. Now, the thing is with the 8 of Swords, which is where we're caught up and we don't see this little castle back here, that's your goal, which you can't see here because the river of life is, in other words, you're sad, stuck, can't see, bound. But the bonds are loose. All you need is action. To get the action going, then you can get out of those bonds, you can take the blindfold off, you can look at a different perception and see there's a different way in which you could do this to go get what you want. Again, action. We can't just sit here and be miserable. We've got to do something. I'm not saying there's not a time for grief, where that's another topic, but there's a time for that, but there's a time for doing action. Now, often, I decided to do one that shows action, but not necessarily seeing where they're going. This is common. This comes up a lot for people. This is the 10 of Wands. To me, it's a worry or over mental, a lot of mental stuff going on, often a worry card. And again, the goal is right there, but you can't see it, but you are moving. And at least all it has to do is, again, is reorganizing exactly where, what, and when in order to get it. Another attitude, which I don't normally classify into the procrastinational elements, but I decided I would show this too, just because I want to talk. I really have people aware it's your basic attitude to life that can really stop you if you are an avid or a habitual, probably a better word, for procrastination. He's caught up like the Queen of Cups in his pinnacle, his life, his world. This is it. Could be, it's not always money. It's sometimes just an aspect of life when you get a little obsessive about things. Because the key here is to keep yourself moving one way or another. If you are a procrastinator, check which one is it is. Is it fear of not knowing what to do when you reach an obstacle? Is it a sense of a lot of internal dialogue saying this is going to be hard, I can't do this? Now, I have in my Secrets for Living Happily book a process that I've used a lot, which I call the first step principle. The first step principle is you have a goal. All you do is set your mind on the goal. And then you take the first step that you need to do with that goal. That could be picking up the phone, that could be writing an email, that could be checking a website, could be anything. You do the first step. That's done. You go back to your goal. You don't worry about the middle. The middle is non-existent. It's the end. So what would be you've made your first step. Now, what's the next step? The next step becomes your first step again. The first step, it may be follow-up, it may be another call, maybe something else, but you do that. And you just keep knowing this is my goal, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm heading. And then you keep making the steps. But each step is like a first step. And that way you're not burdening your mind with all the issues about, oh my God, how am I going to do that step? And that is that process of learning as you go. I still work with that principle. It's kind of ingrained in me a little bit. If I want to actually do something, I sit down and figure out, okay, that's my goal. This is what I want now. What's my first step? What do I do first? And then go from there, always on my first step. And it's one of the things that I'm just going to add something else because a thought came into my mind years and years ago when I was running my family, my own education. I was teaching metaphysics. I was doing a lot of different things. I was running a business. I had lots of energy. And then somebody said to me, how do you do all this? I don't understand. And it's because I had to sit back and say, well, how do I do all this? Because it was true. And then I realized that I compartmentalized my day by time. And I'm still a little bit of a time person before I come on to taping this show. And by the way, if you ever want to see me live, not just recording, you can come in and chat with me before I begin and after. Just let me know and I will give you the Zoom link that you can come in. And so that's an important element. But it's basically because of the timing. And I follow the clock a little bit. Like, okay, I realized when a person asked me that, I realized that I did certain things to a certain time. And then I would just stop. That time is up and I'll go on to the next thing I had to do or the next thing and the next thing. And again, it's very much like the one-step principle. While I was doing what I was doing, I was not concerned about what was coming up next until the clock came. And then the clock may get shifted a little bit, but often not, because the next thing had to get done. And sometimes that was ironing, doing the ironing for the family or baking or getting supper ready or whatever. But it's like knowing when and where and how, and not thinking, oh, I've got so much to do today, but rather like, okay, how can I fit this in? What's the most major thing I have to do? Let's get that out of the way. What's the next thing I have to do? And I'm not a big list person, believe me, but sometimes they're important. And I remember working with a friend of mine that was having trouble getting things completed. And I said, well, what's your list? And she had like list of things. And well, what's the most important? And she looked at it and she said, I don't know. I said, well, if you don't know what's the most important, how do you know what to go do? No wonder you're procrastinating, because you're overloaded by all the things you have to do. Pick out the most important. What's immediate? What needs to be done now? Do it. Get it out of the way. And if you are a list maker, make sure that you haven't got things there only the day. I have my appointment book. I get up and I look, okay, what am I doing today? I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and I got this free time here. Good. So it's like becoming aware of your world, so that, you know, there's a saying, you are the master of your world. But if you give it all into your mind and the worry up here, then you're not going to be taking care of business. If you want to know how successful people work, I always never ever look at my desk. My secretaries at the time knew not to touch my desk, because I knew where every pile met. But if you go into an office, most people have very clean desks. They don't have a lot of stuff jumbling their mind up. Organization is important. Procrastinators don't do it. But I have one story I need to tell you before I finish. Years ago, when I was doing in a transformational of children, which I call frozen children, how we freeze in space and time, part of my process of learning to bring me today where I do the energy transformation work, I had a person come to me about procrastination. He said, I procrastinate and I can't figure out why. I said, well, okay, let's take a look at this. So in a quick synopsis, what we came to was, there was a 6-year-old that was procrastinating and always trying to be good and always trying to make things right. And anyway, in the process, there's a transformation element that goes on with that. And it wasn't working. And I have a little voice that helps me. And this little voice said to me, remember, as a child, he was hit. So I just said, will you look around inside for another 6-year-old? And we found it. We found him. Another part. In other words, we split in time. We split inside. And the 6-year-old that had got a lot of hits, where he had split, was the one that was procrastinating, because he didn't want to do anything wrong so he would get hit. So here is a man, I can't remember his age, but I believe he was in his 40s at the time. And it was a man who knew he had an issue. Little did he know it resulted from a split that happened when he was 6. And the 6-year-old that did not want to get hit again made him stop. So he had to be really sure everything was all right. Anyway, we did the connection. We got the two back integrated, and then the transformation process happened, grew them up, integrated them with him in the present. He let me know he did not procrastinate like he did before. And that is the joy of knowing how to understand that sometimes we need deeper work. Number one. But number two is to know we stay in the moment and we go one step at a time, and be sure if it's our mind telling us, is it our thought? Is it someone else's thought? Did you take it from a parent? Did you take it from a teacher where they said, you know, you're silly, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. It could be, especially creative people get that a lot. And then just being in the present and knowing that you can be successful. You can have a life that is happy, that you can have a life that is fulfilling. I'm just putting my cards away if you wondered what I was doing. And so I just want to thank you for listening today. Remember that you can always contact me through my website, www.normacowie.com. Please keep on with your likes, your subscribing, and those subscribers, thank you that have already subscribed. Thank you very, very much. And what else? Oh yeah. When you're on the website, sign up for the newsletter. Find out what my specials are, what classes may be coming up, etc. I'm right in the process of thinking what I'm going to do next month. So I thank you. You have a good day, and keep on working one step at a time. Thank you.